So, why is it necessary to find out your purpose? Ama, in other words, why is it dangerous, to call it so, living without a purpose, without knowing why you're here? Basically, just moving through life, going through the motions. Why is it dangerous, and why is it necessary for you to find out your purpose? How are you? Karibu, welcome back to my channel. Yeah, I hope you've been doing well. Acts chapter 17, verse 26 says, "From one man he made all the creations, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands." And then it says in verse 27, "God did this so that men will seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us." And then verse 27 says, "For in him we live and move and have our being." That tells us that we have no purpose away from God, that our whole being was made to be centered on God, because in him we live, as we have heard, in him we move, and in him we have our being. And so we are told that from one man God created everyone and decided, some versions said that he decided where everyone would live. And the word says that in verse 27, what we've just read, is that God did this so that man could seek him, so that they could seek him and perhaps reach out to him and find him, though he is not far from us. So sometimes you can go through life wondering, okay, what is the purpose of all this? Like, for example, I imagine when someone gets to the point of committing suicide, they think that it is not necessary for them to continue living, or maybe because of this and that and the other one, it's not necessary for me to continue living. But God says that he created us and put us in this earth exactly where he put us, so that we could seek him and reach out to him, so that we could find out why. It's like having a machine that, unless you look at the manual, you do not know exactly what to do with it. What prompted this topic was, the other day I was looking at the book of Judges, chapter 19, and I was looking at, it's a story of, if I could summarize it for you, there's a Levite who had a concubine, and this concubine, the word says that she played a prostitute, and she left and went to her father's home, and she stayed there for 4 months. And when she was there, now this guy, the Levite, after 4 months decided to go and find her at her father's home. And long story short, when they were on their way back, it became dark, and they decided, let's sleep over somewhere and then we'll leave and head home tomorrow. And since they had a servant with them, the servant said, let's go and stay in a certain town. In this town that where they was a certain town near them, and he said, let's stay there. But this guy said, apana, let's at least look for a town that is owned by a fellow Israelite. You know that Levites were a tribe of priests and they were Israelites. And so he decided, let's at least find a place where we'll be among our brothers, the people of Israel. And so the closest town to them was a town that was called Gibeah. And the people that were living in Gibeah were the people from the tribe of Israel, coming from Benjamin. And so they went there, they found someone to accommodate them, and they went to his home. When night fell, the men from that town came and ganged up and stood around the house where they were sleeping, and they wanted to take the man, the Levite, and have their way with him. And so the owner of the house pleaded with them and told them, no, I can give you my virgin daughter to you to do whatever you want with her. But eventually, the Levite ended up giving away the concubine, his concubine, the one he had just picked up from his father-in-law's home. And so they had their way with her. They eventually, to the point that she died. And so as she was dying, she came and fell at the doorstep. And so in the morning, the Levite wakes up to leave, and I don't know why he doesn't seem concerned, but he wakes up to leave. While he opens the door to go, he finds the concubine fallen on the doorstep. And so his reaction is, wake up, let's go. But then he finds out that the woman is dead. And so he picks her up, puts her on his donkey, and lives with her. When he gets home, he decides, I'm going to cut her up and I'm going to send her to every tribe of Israel. And so she cuts her up into 12 pieces, sends her out to the 12 tribes of Israel, and long story short, that causes the children of Israel to start fighting against each other, which before that we had not seen it. This story made me realize how important it is for us to live in purpose. One, the Levites were supposed to be a tribe of priests, and they were the ones who used to attend to the temple, to the altar and everything, and so to the altar, and so they used to pray for the people. And it was to the extent that God had said that they should not get a piece of an inheritance of land as the 12 tribes were getting, because he himself would be their great inheritance. And so they were just supposed to live taking care of the altar and whatever, yani walikuwa wanafaa kuwa in service of God. And so when we see here a Levite, since now it had gotten to a time during the lives of the Israelites where they had no leader, and so as you all know, Israelites walikuwa, the moment they have no leader, they just go haywire. And so the Levites, their father had told Levi when he was telling his children what will befall them after he had died. The Levites who came from Levi, his son Levi, that is Jacob, in Genesis 49, Jacob told his son Levi that they would be spread among the Israelites. And so true to this word, the Levites they really didn't have a place to go, because they were supposed to be attending the altar. And so there's no leader, the people have gone haywire, now the Levites are spread among the other tribes. And so this guy, ni kama you can say alikuwa anaishi kama ndege, if I can call it that. And so you can imagine a priest having a concubine already tells us that this is a person who is living away from his purpose. And we see his life ending up in such a funny way, while as if he probably would have been in purpose, then a lot of these things, actually the whole of this chapter, would not have happened. What am I saying? You might end up having a chicken life, whereas you are actually made to be an eagle. You might end up having to live um, a mediocre life when you are actually made to be great. Let me give you an example of this. For example, when our president, Ruto, came into power, uh, someone took it upon themselves to make a portrait and take it to them. And I have seen this happen even to other people who they make, for example, they draw famous people and go and present these drawings to them. And when news people go and try to find out more about the artist, when they get to where they live or they work, they find that there's nothing much to it. And it tells you, for me, it's a sad situation, because I usually think if only this person could tap into their purpose, they would have been great. And we see other people who are not natural artists, they were actually trained to be artists, but they become so much greater. And you end up having this amazing and great gift, but then you end up living a small life, if you could call it that. God created each one of us to thrive in our place of destiny, to make an impact in our place of destiny. And sometimes it is with what you have, sometimes it is with the knowledge He gives you. It could be anything. When you seek Him, He shows you. And the thing about purpose, it actually illuminates your life. It actually gives you a path to follow. It actually connects you with the people that you should be with and act and work with. And I heard a story some time back of this man who used to ask God, why is my life like this? Why is it that I'm so unfortunate? What's happening? And I don't know whether he had a dream or something of the sort. And he was walking on the beach with either with Jesus or with an angel. And this guy, as they were walking and talking, they came across, they saw a man who was coming towards them from the opposite direction. And this man looked like the exact image of this guy. And as they were drawing closer, he realized that this person looked exactly like him, except that he looked as if he was healthier and better, and he looked happy. And so he asked this angel, why does this guy look like me? And why does he look like that? But it's like the same person, but at the same time different. And then he answered him, this was the person that you were actually supposed to be. This is the person that you were made to be, but you refused to take your position. Can you imagine? And sometimes we end up with so much regret simply because we refuse to take the position that we are supposed to be at. That is what I was calling. You end up living like a chicken while you are actually supposed to be an eagle. The Bible actually says that your gift makes a place for you before kings. And so your purpose is the one that actually places you where you are supposed to be exactly. The other danger about not living in purpose is you end up taking other people and them being a casualty of your lack of purpose. For example, when you go back to the story of this Levite, he took up a concubine who he had no business dealing with. He had no business having a concubine. And so she ends up suffering such a tragic death simply because of wrong timing, or being in the just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And she ends up losing her life simply because of the decision of this Levite. And in life, sometimes you end up taking other people and making them casualties out of your lack of purpose. This can be seen in our everyday life when we see, for example, a man who does not know his purpose decides to take up a woman and marry them. And the thing about purpose, it actually, when you know your purpose, you have the ability to choose, is this person going to fit in with where I know I'm going? Is this other person going to assist me towards my purpose? Am I going to be of value to them? Or is this basically going nowhere? And you can just imagine children who are born out of a marriage between a person who has no purpose, and he'll probably find another person of the same caliber. What happens to those children? It either ends up being a hellish experience, or it ends up actually breaking down and causing these children to be casualties to the decision of their parents. So it is actually necessary, before I've realized, before you get to the point of making a decision concerning a life partner, it is important to actually find out, why am I here? What's my purpose? So that even when you are aligning to in issues concerning in the serious issues of life, then you are able to align with the right people. Sometimes when you do not seek out your purpose, sometimes you end up falling in the wrong hands. And I think this shows in the story of this Levite, when simply because of his assessment and his wrong decision, they end up falling in the hands of the tribe of Benjamin. And if you actually look at what the tribe of Benjamin, their prediction from their father in Genesis 49, I think it's verse 15, they actually told that they are a ravenous wolf that takes apart its prey at night and divides it in the morning. And you will imagine, why would he make a decision to be in the hands of such people? And true to their nature, they end up doing what was predicted of them. And sometimes lacking purpose makes you end up in the wrong hands. And this can be seen, I see it sometimes when I see girls, for example, and I'm not judging anyone, but sometimes I see girls who they look for a job here, and then they get to a decision that the decision that I'm going to go and look for a job outside this country, and I'm going to, because I have no other option, let me go to Saudi. And for some it works out well, but for most, it doesn't. And you end up, either someone dies 3 months down the line, someone disappears, you get very traumatic experiences, so that even if you survive and come back, your life is never the same again, and not in a good way. And sometimes I usually wonder, what if this person, just where they were born, or even maybe in the next city or the next town, they were actually supposed to be great there? What if this person just took the time to find out who they were made to be and follow through with that, how much greater would they have been? Would they have lost their lives without a purpose? And sometimes, for me, lack of purpose can actually lead you into tragedy, into a real life tragedy. So let's seek out what we are actually made to be. Let's seek out what our purposes are. Let's not just make guesses out of life. Another thing that I found out as a danger of not knowing your purpose is that, together with falling into the wrong hands, sometimes you end up wasting so much time. By the way, apart of that, you end up wasting so much time. You end up, by the time you're like 40 is when you're looking at life and you're wondering, okay, now let me try to pull things back together. Let me try to piece my life back together and make at least something out of it. No, that should not be happening to us. Another thing that I saw is that, do you know that so many people are dependent on your purpose? The moment that you find out who you were meant to be, so many people will benefit from it, even if not immediately, but in the long run, you find that there are so many people who will benefit from you having found out your purpose. You see, when you accept, you let yourself shine, you allow other people, it's like you give the other people a right to shine also. Imagine the kind of families that would be there now if men decided to not just walk through life, but actually find out purpose. And the same with women. Imagine the kind of families that we will end up having. Imagine, for example, I imagine in the last video we talked about Joseph, the story of Joseph in Genesis, from 37 and chapter 37 up to like 50. And I will imagine Joseph actually ended up saving the same family that rejected him. And I've realized that when you have no purpose, rejection is a tragic incident. When people reject you when you have no purpose, sometimes you even end up rejecting yourself. Some people actually commit suicide because of rejection, simply because of rejection. But within purpose, rejection is actually stepping ground to something higher. Within purpose, rejection is a stepping stone for you to get to where you're supposed to be. And so you see, purpose actually makes you, it kind of grows your muscle, if we can say that. It actually grows your muscle, and it actually gives you a perspective to life, so that you realize that even incidences that would have broken you, even incidences that had the capacity to take you out, they find a place within your journey, and they actually act to usher you into more of your purpose, into more of what you're supposed to be. Those incidences actually make you better instead of taking you out. Another thing, purpose actually gives you direction. And you can imagine being without a purpose or a sense of purpose, you might end up walking through life as a wanderer. Like, you're here, you're there, and when you have direction, you have a sense of importance, and you actually feel, I actually contribute something to this world. I actually contribute something in my society or in my family. The moment you do not have that, You might end up being needy, so to say, so that because I've seen there are people who you'll find they're so needy, and it's not because they have nothing to offer, but simply because they do not know what they have to offer. And so when you find out your purpose, you realize you have no reason to have a low self-esteem, because you realize, wow, so I'm important. So there's something that I can give to this world. And let's not confuse purpose with a job, because sometimes you can have a job and have a business and be wealthy, but still feel an emptiness within you. You still feel this, no, there's a gap. There's a gap that I'm not feeling. There's something that is not working. The math is not mathing. But when you find purpose, you actually receive fulfillment. You're actually able to go home at the end of the day and you're like, wow, this is what I came here to do. So let's not confuse those two. It is because I'm working and I'm doing well, or I have a business and it's doing well, therefore automatically that is my purpose. No, a purpose and a job could be two completely different things unless you're working in your purpose. And you see, your purpose actually creates a provision for you. So um, let's not get those two interchanged. Let's not assume that simply because I'm doing well financially, that automatically means that I'm fulfilling my purpose. No. For you to actually feel satisfied, for you to actually get actualized in life, you have to get to a point of really knowing why. Why am I here? What is the purpose? What is my destiny? What was I created to do? Allow God to give you insight. Do not just use your eyes to assess. Do not just sit down and write some things down. Just ask God. He's able to let you know. He's able to direct you. And a point of caution, seeking purpose from God does not mean that He's going to tell you to be a pastor, or He's going to tell you to be a reverend, or to be a prophet. Because sometimes people are afraid of seeking purpose from God simply because they are afraid that that means I'm going to be churchy and I'm going to be a pastor. But no, actually seeking purpose from God connects you to your source. The Bible says in John 15 that He is the vine, we are the branches, and no one can do anything without Him. What does that mean? That means that our whole lives are pegged on Him. The moment that we are away from Him, that is where we start losing our life. That is where we live our whole lives, and at the end of it, we still have not lived. There's a quote that I saw somewhere that says that everyone dies, but not everyone gets to live. And so, seeking a purpose from God, He did not make everyone to be a pastor. No, otherwise this world will not be balanced. There has to be businessmen. There has to be career people. There has to be a pilot. There has to be someone. But within that purpose, if God actually connects you to your purpose, then He connects you to the source. Because if you look at people like David in the Bible, David was not a pastor. If you look at Job, he was not a pastor. Abraham, he was not a pastor. But we see these are people who they are great men, but at the same time they are connected to their purposes, and they are connected to their source, so that in case a failure comes, they know to go back to God and know why, and even sometimes avert danger. And so God, do not be afraid of seeking your purpose from God. He will not hata kwambia uende ukwe John the Baptist uko kwa msitu. No, He will show you, this is what I created for you to do. This is what I created for you to accomplish. This is where I wanted you to flourish. And in doing that, at least no matter what happens, one, you're sure that you will thrive. One, you're sure that you'll be good. And another thing, you're sure that you're living your life doing exactly what God created for you to do. As I wind up, I'm going to show you an interesting verse that I read some time back in Proverbs, and it is in the book of Proverbs, chapter 25. Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 2. And it says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter." It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. That for his own glory, God sometimes makes some things to be mysteries. The next part of that verse says, "To search out a matter is the glory of kings." God sometimes makes some things mysteries, not just to hide them from men, but so that kings can search them out. What makes them kings, what makes them glorious, is that they search out these things that God has hidden. So let us choose to live our lives on the level that God desired for us to live. God never makes wastes. God never makes eti nilimtengeneza tu, alizaliwa tu the way sometimes we think. Eti alizaliwa kibahati mbaya. Saa zingine a baby is born like having an age gap of 10 years between the last sibling and them, and they're like, well, ako kalikuwa kabahati mbaya. No, God never sees things like that. Everyone is made for something, and it is not just something, it is something amazing. And so there's a verse in the word that says that you are gods, but you shall die like mere men. When we refuse to get to our point of purpose, we refuse to realize that we are gods and live as such. So God bless you. Talk to me down below. Comment, tell me something that you've learned. Add something, tell me something that you know that you have not heard me mention within that video. And yeah, let's talk. Like, share, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation going.